What are some of the goals for the College Place Public Schools this year for the 2023 to 2024 school year?
Well, many of them fall right into the academics and the return to getting our kids back on the path that they were on pre-pandemic. And so a lot of work is going into increasing our academic rigor. There was the COVID pandemic, and then there was just the right after the impacts, right? So a big part is pushing kids academically to be resilient, to persevere, and to achieve grade level standards. And we have a lot of kids with learning loss. So accelerating that learning, getting them the resources they need. So really that's the big one. The second is more of a shift, I think, for schools in ours is the social and emotional learning and care for our students and also for our staff. And so we are investing a lot of time and resources into curriculum, but also just activities for staff that are about building that capacity. Life is hard. Mental illness and mental health issues are I think, at an all-time high. And so how our system responds with resources and supports to really keep people well and in that place where they can be successful. So of our many goals, I think those are our top two that we focus on daily here in College Place Public Schools.
What are some of the challenges meeting those goals this year?
Well, I think there's a little bit of still this residual hangover from the pandemic of it really did things to sort of rewire brains of students. You think about if you had contracted COVID-19, you were required to stay home for a certain amount of days, or if you had a cold or a cough, a sore throat, those sorts of things. We are really seeing that attendance, even though we've kind of come back to this new normal, are still things that are lagging because people were taught and told, hey, if you have these things, you have to stay home. And so how do we build up like this resilience for learning that says, hey, I know you may be feeling a little under the weather, but if it's not a situation where you're sick and contagious, you need to be here. So that's one of our obstacles. The other is that we had degrees of loss for all of our students. Some of it was learning loss, right? That they fell behind or where they were on progress. Some of it was actual loss of loved ones and people that they cared about that sort of had that emotional setback that caused them to not return with maybe the same motivations. And then I think just you have to remember, we were programmed to be social distanced for this duration of time. And we are wired to be connected. As human beings, we're wired to be connected. But we're more isolated than ever. We pushed kids onto electronics. We pushed them onto these devices, and we told them that they couldn't be within 6 feet of each other, and adults as well. And so to resume a really healthy collaboration in classrooms, we know that when we're on great teams, we do great things. And here in College Place, we really focus on our learning being collaborative. I learn from you, you learn from me. And so to get kids back into that has been a bigger challenge than I think that we realized it would be.
How did COVID impact teachers here?
First of all, I couldn't be prouder of our amazing staff. When we got the news on that Friday in 2020, the schools were going to close, by Monday, we were teaming together to figure out how we were going to do online learning. So their ingenuity and their creativity is unsurpassed. It gives me goosebumps now to even think about those moments in time and those individuals that I go like, you were awesome. It was such a hard time, but it's been hard. It's the actual pandemic was hard to learn how to do things online and remote and connect with kids in new ways and use technology that they'd never used. But they also had the residual effect of kids. Schools bring structures and predictability. We didn't really understand how incredibly powerful that is for our society until the shutdown, right? Parents count on us to really help them build routines and structures for kids that then they support and they use at home. That allows them to go to work. That allows these things. And when kids sort of were left without those things, we really saw the change in behavior. We saw that they really struggled with, expectations and how do I sit still for a period of time? How do I take directions from somebody who's not my mom? If I've haven't been in school, who do I listen to? Who do I respect? And so our teachers really faced a challenge. I think we know it was an unprecedented challenge, but and all the while they were dealing with the same things, right? They had loss of family members to COVID. They were sick. Their family members got sick. All these things, and then also they got rewired a little bit over that, right? They to return to school as it was before will never be there. We didn't have one-to-one technology before COVID. Now we have one-to-one, and it plays an important role as an instrument and a tool in student learning. So it's really impacted them, I think, individually, but also I think the profession collectively.
Did the pandemic make it easier for teachers and administration to adapt quicker to change?
Well, I think it forced us to make changes that it would have taken us a long time to make. And a lot of this was good, were good things. There were people that if you'd asked me if they would have known how to operate a Chromebook or a Zoom link or a camera connected to their computer, I would have said, nah, they're just not going to do it. And they're not that they can't, they won't. They won't learn it, because why do I need to do that, right? I'm functioning this way. And so it forced us to do things, fast forwarded us in a lot of ways. Some of it will say probably was not as good. We forced, kids into isolation and put devices in their hands at a time that social media had exploded, right? And now we're like, okay, we need you to put down your social media and reconnect with us in real time. But it absolutely caused us to be creative beyond our wildest imaginations. We solved problems that had never been problems before. And I'm so proud. I look back at our notes for things that we were trying to figure out, and I'm like, we figured that out. And because we said, we have a problem, who's the team that needs to sit around the table and figure this out? And often it was different for every problem. So it was incredibly, it accelerated many things that I would say it wouldn't have otherwise.
Earlier you mentioned that you feel like the pandemic has impacted students not only on that education level learning loss, but also emotionally. How have you seen this through the kids?
Well, first of all, we do a lot as human beings with facial expressions, and we connect by how people respond to us, how they look at us, and when they had half a face to judge with each other as well, it was really cause for them to shift in who they trusted and their relationships. And I will tell you, having been in classrooms this fall, kids are back to looking me in the eye, asking me, hey, what's your name? Hey, shake my hand. We really felt that the last year or two that we were trying to overcome this, and we couldn't quite put our finger on it, that really it was because we had deprogrammed them from being relational. And we really wanted them to be relational, but they didn't know how, right? They didn't know what was acceptable. They didn't know if I shook your hand, if you might say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with that, right? Because I don't want to get sick. And so we're seeing that return of this really thirst for being together and playing games that they can interact closely, and that they can give hugs and they can give fist bumps. And I'm just like, I know that when I go down to our middle school, if I stand in the hallway now, today, they will be like, Fry, fist bump, high five, and we're back to that interconnectedness, and our kids they need that as a foundation for safety, which then promotes the learning.
You also mentioned mental health earlier, and I've noticed a big push for, I think, everybody who to be aware of mental health problems, but especially for teenagers. How have you seen this represented through the school district, and how and what's the push like to solve it?
Well, it is ongoing daily. One of the things that we did was we put a filter across some of our technology that would look for symptoms and signs and language that our students use in communication on our network that are concerning, right? It catches language almost every day of self-harm or thoughts that are a really dark place, where kids are talking about things. They're talking about it, right? They're sharing it, and in certain ways. And so we've really, improved, I think, the quality of our response. Proactively, our character development curriculum is teaching kids tools to how do you be okay with saying things aren't okay, is, I think, a big part of that. And we're seeing that start to come out. We've added therapy in our schools, professional therapists that we are using with our students here on site, which eliminates some of the barriers, right, to getting to that location and seeing that counselor that they need. We are sorely missing the mental health support in the Walla Walla area that we need to serve our kids. That is an obvious area of shortage. I know that it's lagging behind because certainly this accelerated at a speed that occupation or that area of expertise just didn't have the capacity to stay up with. But it certainly is something that we know now that it's a part of what we do day in and day out. It's part of our instruction. It's no longer like, hey, set your problems over here because we need you to focus on civics because that's the content we're learning. We know that they're integrated. We know that our teachers it all has to fit on that plate. And there are times where we have to step back and say, today, let's focus on this aspect of your mental health so that we can get to this academic portion tomorrow. The other thing I think that our schools and our staff have done is really identify kids in need and look for ways. We partner with United Way to bring funding to kids to remove barriers. Some of those are mental health barriers. Some of those are just access to things that we know are really good wellness activities, like being physically active for a kid who says, I can't afford to pay for sports, to the fees to play or buy the shoes, and we say that's okay. We'll pay for that so that you can access that because we know that those are all ways that you'll get the mental health and the camaraderie and the team work that builds that resilience, which is built through relationships.
We're seeing this national trend of violence in schools. Have we seen anything like this here in the school district?
Well, I would say we see things that are, we've had fights and we've had those sorts of things. It's been 5 years ago now. We had a serious threat that never amounted to anything, but the way that we interacted with our local College Place Police Department was the best that I've ever been a part of. We're not without our issues, but one of the things that I will say is we are small enough that we get to know each other. And that is a gift. It really is. I've been in big school districts and that's not the case. And so to know our kids and to be able to connect them and relate to them is a big intervention in understanding where someone's at and a shift in behavior and a change. Our school has the best cutting edge technology of anywhere that you'll see across this country. Our lockdown capability, our alarm systems, our communication tools, all of those things are second to none. Our cameras, we've added 30 new security cameras across our school district for those. The single point of entry that require people to push buttons to check IDs. We have doors that only you can scan in and out. All of those things, I would say, I'm really proud of that the work that, and the investment. It's still relying on all of us to do our part, right? It's all of us seeing something and saying something. It's the door that's secure, but that the student puts a piece of bark in so that they can go and come back into and thinks, oh, that's not a big deal. Meanwhile, we've opened ourselves up for, you know, an intruder just to walk into our school. It also relies on all of us here doing procedurally what is expected in all situations. So we're not without our conflicts. We're not without our issues. You know, we have a team when we have someone reporting that they've been bullied, for example. We take that extremely seriously. We have a team that's trained in responding to that, investigating, that sort of removes themselves from that situation so they don't get blinded by, oh, that person couldn't do that, right? And so all of those things, I think, lend itself to what can be a really, really safe place. But again, it's relying on every single one of us, you know, pulling our weight every day.
Has there been any discussions on artificial intelligence and the use of that in schools by teachers or students?
Yes, there has. And you know, I will tell you, it has not grown to being a big topic of consternation or anything of that matter. I think our teachers are using it and aware of it. Our principals are training them to be able to identify what that looks like. And our goal is, this is not going away, right? It's not changing. I read an article last night where they had used AI to mimic a radio personality and say that he said all these things. And so that's the world that we're in. And what we are trying to do, and I say trying because it's new, right? It's a new frontier. It's the newest thing that we're facing in our schools, is how, again, do we teach kids to be thinkers and educated consumers of information, right? If I just say that, and I'm like, man, that was said by that person. I can't believe they said that. And I don't really dig into it and say, boy, that doesn't align with that person's beliefs or the behaviors that I've seen from them before. I wonder if that is, they were a victim of some form of AI, right? And so our hope is that this teaches our kids to be even wiser and slow things down and think about, is that possible, right? Did that really happen? Or is that something that's been artificially made up? It does give us an opportunity, if we learn to use that tool, to really engage kids in new ways. Of course, they're loving it. They change their voices, they change their faces, they do all the stuff, and which can be cool. But for us, it's like, how is this sort of a means to an end that does good for you, for us collectively? So yeah, it's definitely a new challenge. We like to think of it as a thinking partner, right? Like, I have an idea, I'd like to write about something this, I'm gonna start it, I'm asking the AI, hey, what else am I missing? I've used it for letters, and I'll say, here's the things that I want to hit, and it'll put stuff in there. I'll go, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that. I would have missed that. And so if we can get it to be a partner in growing sort of, you know, like the teamwork that we talk about, the collaboration versus write me an essay on, you know, this topic and submitting it, then we'll be in a much better place. But it's definitely growing pains at this point.
How are schools combating drug and alcohol use in students?
It does take all of us. Again, it's see something, say something. It really is, you know, the vapes and the use of those things is certainly different than we've ever seen in our schools. But I'm proud of the work that we do. We have drug and alcohol counselors in our middle and high school. You know, a focus is on prevention and then intervention, right? And then postvention. I would say in the olden days, it used to be like, let's teach kids about saying no and let's do these things. And now we're talking about choices and the choices that you can make. And you can make the choice to be drug-free. And that's a choice that you can make. It's all up to you to make this in the moment. I have 4 boys. We talk about choices that they make. There's a lot of them that they make when I'm not there. And then we really have changed our intervention. I will tell you that schools have become a lot of things that they weren't historically. We used to say, hey, you have that problem, you need to go somewhere else over there and let us know when you're fixed. And we're pouring a lot of those resources into getting kids healthy, working with the families, and then I think the following up, how are you doing? What supports do you need? And so at the end of the day, I think that the amount of things that we've put into on the front end of how do you do this in a day and age where social media, the peer pressure is all around us. It used to be face to face and in your peer groups. Now it comes from places that these kids, and so it really talks back to a lot of our things about it starts with you. It really does. It starts with choices. And we need to teach you how to be able to make choices even in the face of what is maybe extreme pressure to do otherwise. How do you make good choices when you have a homecoming dance and the activities that go with that? And so we teach on those things. And I think that that's the difference in the shift of what we do in today's day and age versus I think like the idea of like, well, we're going to just not believe anybody does it and we're going to shame and we're going to yell and don't do this. We understand that kids are making lots of choices and our job is to educate them and teach them on the consequence. And so again, I will tell you the impact, influence that kids have on each other is huge. And so messaging through social media and doing those sorts of things through our schools on things that are great, non-alcohol, drug-related events and getting kids to engage in that is a huge part of what we do.
Is there anything with College Place Public Schools that's happening in the near future? Any big exciting events or new programs or anything?
I think as we start this fall, we welcome back our school resource officer, which when we talked about safety, it had been on a year pause, largely because of the lack of police officers across the country, but particular here. So bringing that back for safety has been a great accomplishment, and I'm looking forward to this year. The big things we have done. Our school board has reinvested in science-based, research-based curriculum in our schools in the millions of dollars over the last few years, and then in addition technology. And I think that what we're seeing is this shift of alignment of what we use to teach and how we teach, and that's going to be a really big frontier upcoming. I mean, we have it in math, we have it in our reading sections, in our English language arts, we've done it in our social emotional curriculum, and so the amount of that new science, so all of those things I think are really a big deal when you talk about getting into the classroom. I think the bigger piece, I think globally that people talk about College Place is just the evolution of the city of College Place. It's continuing to grow and change. They're breaking ground on 180 apartment, family complex apartments that will pour into our schools. Across from my office here is the 450 homes that are being platted and they're going to be built as this town becomes really the place that's sought out. I like to say that College Place is the place to be. It really is. It's a small town feel where we're connected to each other, to the university, to our police department that works so well with us, and that makes us what's next really awesome here in College Place.
Awesome. And is there anything that you would like to say to students or their parents?
I haven't ever really reached out to our students, but I did this fall. I sent an email to all of our student email addresses, and I felt drawn to do it because of what they've been through and sort of how complex their worlds are in today's day and age. And it's so much more complex. I would say that when I was growing up, it was probably complex at that time, but it's changed so much. And there's so much peer pressure to be this or to be that and forget who you are and compare your accomplishments to someone else's. And the message that I want them to hear loud and clear is be your best version of yourself. Live your life looking for personal records, PR in everything that you do for yourself. And a PR is such a powerful goal-setting tool. It really is about how good did I do compared to me. And that is, we live by what we call the CP way, and it starts with owning it, which is me owning my 20 square feet and the difference I can make. And I want them to know that bleeds into everything. It bleeds into academics. It bleeds into social health, social emotional health. It bleeds into their choices about drugs and alcohol, and about making good choices that harm others. And so we want them to be the best version of themselves, and we're here to support them on that journey. And I want the parents to know that we invest heavily in the things that really encompass that belief.